A unit built from scratch. I want you to picture a teacher. Her name does not matter, so we will call her Priya. But she could be a teacher anywhere. She could be in Pune, she could be in Toronto, she could be in Nairobi. She teaches grade 7 geography. She has been teaching for 9 years. She is good at her job. The students like her. The parents respect her. The principal trusts her. She has heard the words concept based inquiry at staff meetings for the last 2 years. She has nodded along. She has thought it sounded interesting. She has not, until today, tried to design a unit this way. She has been waiting for the right unit. She has been waiting until she had time. Like most of us, she has been waiting until later. Today is Saturday. Her daughter is at football practice. She has the afternoon. On her timetable next term, in 3 weeks, is a unit she has taught for 9 years. Rivers. Rivers is the unit she most resents teaching. The textbook chapter is thick. The vocabulary is heavy. Tributary, confluence, delta, estuary, watershed, meander, oxbow lake. Every year, students memorize the words for the test. Every year, on the day after the test, the words are gone. Every year, in grade 8, when she asks them what a river does, they say, water flows downhill, which is true and depressing. Priya pulls out a sheet of paper. She has just finished reading chapter 12 of an audiobook called Concept Based Inquiry. She has decided to try the 7 steps. We are going to sit with her this afternoon. We are going to watch her think. By the time her daughter gets back from football, the Rivers unit is going to look completely different. Step 1. Picking the concepts. Priya stares at the blank page. The first instinct is to write rivers at the top. She catches herself. Rivers is the topic. The 7 steps say start with a concept. She makes a list down the side of the page of every concept she can think of that might apply to rivers: system, change, power, connection, resource, flow, energy, boundary, identity, interdependence, adaptation, cycle. That is 12, too many. She crosses out the ones that feel like a stretch. Identity goes. Energy is tempting, but feels more like a physics unit. Boundary stays because rivers do form boundaries between nations. Adaptation goes. She is down to 8. She tries the macro versus micro filter. What is the big lens? What is the supporting depth? She tries system as the macro lens, rivers as systems, the basin, the flow, the interaction with the land, the interdependence of source, channel, and mouth. That works. The science of rivers is systemic. Geography traditionally talks about rivers in this way, but she has another candidate: power. Rivers have been the source of empires. They have caused wars. They have shaped where people live and how they prosper. Power is a strong lens too, she thinks. The year 7 unit is geographic, not political. The political dimensions of rivers will come up, but the spine of the curriculum is about how rivers work and how they shape the land and the people. System is the better macro lens. Power can be a thread inside the unit, but not the lens. She circles system. Now the micro concepts. What lives inside system that gives the unit depth? She picks 2. Flow, interdependence. Flow, because rivers are the most visible example of flow that a child encounters. Water flows, sediment flows. People and goods have flowed along rivers for 10,000 years. Flow is the verb of the river. Interdependence, because a river is nothing without its tributaries, its banks, its valley, its mouth, and the communities along it. Take one part away and the whole system changes. That is the lesson. At the top of her sheet of paper, Priya writes 3 words: system, flow, interdependence. She's 40 seconds into the planning process, and the unit is already different from any version she has taught before. Step 2. Drafting the generalization. Priya's pen hovers over the page. This is the hard part. She tries a first draft. Rivers shape the landscapes, cultures, and economies they pass through. She reads it back. She frowns. Shape is a weak verb. It does not say how the shaping happens. It does not connect the concepts she chose. There is no flow in the sentence. There is no interdependence. She remembers the no verbs from the previous chapter. Affects, impacts, influences, is, are, have. Shape is not exactly on the list, but it is a cousin. It tells you something happened without telling you what mechanism caused it. Second draft. Rivers connect distant places, drive economies, and create patterns of human settlement that change over time. Better. 3 verbs. Connect, drive, create. All stronger than shape. But the sentence is now 3 claims stapled together rather than one traveling sentence. Third draft. Rivers connect distant ecosystems and communities into interdependent systems, driving patterns of settlement, trade, and conflict that change as the river itself changes. Now we are getting somewhere. She reads it out loud. The kitchen is quiet, so the sentence has nowhere to hide. It sounds heavy, but it holds. She makes a small edit. Rivers connect distant ecosystems and communities into interdependent systems, driving patterns of settlement, trade, and conflict that shift over time as the river changes. She replaces change with shift because the sentence already has the word change doing political work. She keeps as the river changes because that is the surprise. Rivers are not static. They move. The Yamuna a century ago was a different river. The Mississippi 1,000 years ago ran in a different channel. The Indus Delta is retreating. Rivers themselves change. That is the second half of the sentence. She underlines the sentence. This is the North Star. A year 7 student will not say this exact sentence at the end of the unit. They will say something close. They will say, rivers connect places, build economies and cause fights, and they also change shape. That is fine. The student version captures the same meaning in their own words. The teacher version is the destination. The student version is where they land. Priya tests the sentence with one more move. She asks herself the question Erickson asks. Will this sentence travel? Could a student take this sentence and apply it to a river they have never studied? The Mekong, the Amazon? Could a student take this sentence and apply it to a different kind of flow? A trade route? A migration corridor? Yes, the sentence travels. She has her generalization. Step 3. The inquiry questions. Priya now needs the questions that will pull students towards the sentence without giving the sentence away. She tries a factual question first. Where does the Ganges begin? That is fine. It is Google able. It is a starting question. It is not the engine. She tries a conceptual question. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? Better. That question demands analysis. That question could not be answered in 3 seconds. That question invites comparison across cases. She tries a debatable question. Who owns a river that flows through 3 countries? That is sharp. That is the kind of question that could lead a class into a 40-minute argument. That is the question the unit ends on. She writes 3 questions on the sheet of paper. Factual. What does a river do as it travels from source to mouth? Conceptual. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? Debatable. Who owns a river that crosses 3 countries? She likes them. The conceptual question is the headline question for the unit. It will go on the wall. The factual question is the starting question for day 1. The debatable question is the closing question for day 10. Step 4. The content and skills. Priya now opens the textbook. For the first time in 9 years, she's opening the textbook as a tool, not as a destination. She's looking for content that serves the concepts she has chosen. The textbook has chapters on the parts of a river, on erosion and deposition, on river basins around the world, on flooding, on dams. She circles what she will keep. She crosses out what she will not. She decides on 3 case studies. The Nile, the Mekong, the Mississippi, 3 rivers, 3 continents. Three different stories of how rivers shape lives. The Nile, because the Nile is the textbook case of a civilization built on a river. 5,000 years of Egyptian history is a story about the Nile. The Aswan Dam, finished in 1970, transformed everything downstream. The Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam, finished in 2023, is currently transforming what Egypt thought it could rely on. The Nile is alive with the question of who owns a river. The Mekong, because the Mekong runs through 6 countries from the Tibetan Plateau to the South China Sea. 60 million people depend on the river for fish and rice. 11 dams on the Chinese stretch alone have transformed the flow. Cambodian fishers report catches a third of what they were 20 years ago. The Mekong is alive with the question of interdependence. The Mississippi, because the Mississippi is the textbook case of a river that has reshaped a country. The Great Migration was in part a movement up the Mississippi corridor. The economy of the American Midwest is a river economy. The river itself wants to change its channel and has wanted to for 1,000 years, held in place only by the engineering of the Army Corps. The Mississippi is alive with the question of a river that changes itself. She lists the skills she wants students to practice. Map analysis, reading satellite imagery, analyzing primary sources, including treaty documents and journalism, constructing comparative arguments across cases, conducting a short oral interview with someone in their family who has lived near a river. The local skill matters. It connects the abstract case studies to the student's own life. On a sheet of paper, she writes, in small letters underneath the generalization, 3 rivers and 5 skills. The sheet is filling up. Step 5. Designing the phases. Priya now lays out the unit. She has 11 lessons. She decides to map them across the phases of inquiry. She makes a column down the page for each day. Day 1, engage, the provocation. She decides on this. 2 satellite images on the screen, side by side, no captions. The first is Cairo viewed from above. You can see the Nile snaking through the desert. The city hugs the river. To the east and west, sand. The second image is Khartoum, viewed from above. You can see the blue Nile and the white Nile coming together. The city sits at the confluence. To the east and west, again, sand. The question on the board, why are these cities here? Why not in the desert next door? Pairs of students will look. They will whisper. They will hypothesize. Water, soil, trade, defense. The teacher will write candidate explanations on the board. Then the teacher will say, all of these are part of the answer. Across the next 10 lessons, we are going to figure out exactly which ones matter and how they fit together. The big question for our unit is up there. And she will reveal the conceptual question. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? Day 1 ends. Students leave wondering. Day 2, focus, concept formation, the yes-no sort. On the board, 6 cities. Yes, these are cities along major rivers. Cairo, Egypt, Phnom Penh, Cambodia, St. Louis, Missouri. No, these are cities far from any major river. Lhasa in central Tibet, Mecca in the western desert of Saudi Arabia, Las Vegas in the Nevada desert. The question, what do all 3 yes cities have that the no cities don't? Students will hypothesize. Trade, food, water, easy access to other places. They will discover that all 3 yes cities sit on water that flows from somewhere to somewhere else. They will discover, importantly, that the no cities have all had to invent something extraordinary to make up for the absence of a river. Lhasa has thin air and ancient trade routes. Mecca was a religious gathering point in trade caravans. Las Vegas survives because of an engineered dam 200 miles away on the Colorado. The no cities prove the yes cities point. Without a river, you need something else. The teacher names what is happening. The concept of flow has just been defined. A river flows. With the flow comes water, soil, fish, boats, trade, people. The flow is what makes a settlement viable. Day 3 to day 6. Investigate. 3 expert groups. Group A becomes the Nile group. Group B, the Mekong. Group C, the Mississippi. Each group has a dossier. Each dossier has the same structure: a 4-sentence summary, a map, a by the numbers panel, a primary source excerpt, an image, a photograph of a person who lives along the river with a 1-paragraph quote about what the river means to them. Each group fills in an expert sheet with 5 boxes: length of the river, countries the river runs through, major industries that depend on the river, a current conflict over the river, a story of how the river has changed in the last 50 years. This investigation takes 3 lessons. On the 4th day, jigsaw. New groups form, 1 expert from each river in every new group. Each expert teaches their river to the others for 3 minutes each. The class now holds 3 rivers in their collective memory. Day 7, organize, sort out. The cross comparison chart. The wall chart goes up. 3 columns, 1 per river, 6 rows. Length, basin countries, agriculture supported, current conflict, major dam projects, communities displaced. The class fills the chart in with sticky notes, 1 color per river. They stand back. They look across. The pattern is striking. Every river is contested. Every river feeds millions. Every river has been transformed by dams. Every river has displaced people whose names you do not know, but who lost their homes anyway. Every river crosses borders that did not exist when the river started flowing. The teacher asks 1 question: what do you see across the rows? Students start to speak. The intellectual climax of the unit happens here. Students realize that the 3 rivers, despite being on different continents in different centuries, are telling the same story. The story of rivers is the story of interdependent systems that humans have tried to control and have only partially succeeded in controlling. The story of rivers is the story of flow that does not respect the lines we draw on maps. Priya, in her kitchen, writes, organize, executes the moment they see the pattern with 3 exclamation marks. Day 8, generalize, make meaning. Sentence stems on the board. A river is more than archaic. Rivers shape communities because Marai. Across all 3 of our rivers, we noticed that we. Students draft individually, 3 minutes. They pair to refine, 3 minutes. They share with the whole class. The teacher captures candidate sentences. The class converges on a sentence in their own words. A likely student version: rivers tie distant places together into one connected system, and the system feeds and divides the people who live along it, and the river itself keeps changing because of dams and weather and people. Not bad. The teacher will help them tighten it. They will land somewhere close to the North Star sentence Priya drafted on Saturday afternoon. The sentence goes up on the wall. It stays there for the rest of the unit. It will get referenced for the next 2 years every time a river or a system or a flow shows up in any subject. Day 9 and Day 10. Transfer. The grasps task. Priya designs it on her sheet of paper. The goal: apply the class generalization to predict 3 changes facing a riverine community in the Indus Delta of Pakistan over the next 30 years. The role: the student is an environmental advisor consulting for the local community council. The audience: a council of village elders in the Indus Delta who depend on the river for farming and fishing. They have read newspapers about climate change but want a concrete forecast. The situation: saltwater intrusion is rising in the delta. Glacial melt upstream is changing the timing of the floods. Dams in northern Pakistan and proposed new dams further north are reducing flow. The council wants to know what to expect. The product: a 1,000-word briefing document. The document must apply the class generalization. It must reference at least 2 of the 3 rivers studied in the unit, drawing parallels. It must identify 3 concrete changes the community is likely to face. It must recommend at least one community response for each change. The standards. Conceptual depth. The student must use the generalization explicitly. Evidence use. The student must draw on at least two of the case studies. Transfer quality. The analysis must genuinely travel from the Nile, the Mekong, or the Mississippi to the Indus Delta, not just summarize the historical cases. Priya builds a rubric, 3 levels. Below proficient, proficient, above proficient. 3 criteria. Conceptual depth, evidence use, transfer quality. She knows that the student who only memorized the Nile case will struggle to write this brief. That is the design. The brief is only writable by a student who has built the understanding. Day 11, reflect, sentence stems on the board. I used to think rivers were just Wamti. Now I think rivers are my geek. The most surprising thing I learned about rivers is Macha. If I lived on a river, I would now think differently about hey, okay. 90 seconds of writing, pair share. 3 students read out loud. The unit ends. Priya looks at her sheet of paper. The whole unit is sketched on one side of A4. 11 days, 7 phases, 3 rivers, 1 sentence. She has been working for about 90 minutes. Her daughter will be home in another hour. She has time to do step 6 and 7 properly. Step 6. The assessment already designed. Priya realizes she already did step 6 inside step 5 because the transfer task is the assessment. The Indus Delta brief is the unit assessment. There is no separate test on Friday. She tightens the rubric. She makes the descriptors specific. Below proficient on conceptual depth, the student summarizes the case studies but does not articulate the generalization. Proficient, the student articulates the generalization and applies it in general terms to the Indus Delta. Above proficient, the student articulates the generalization, applies it specifically to the Indus Delta, and identifies tensions or surprises that the generalization helps reveal. She does the same for evidence and transfer. 3 rows, 3 columns, 9 cells. Each cell holds a sentence that describes what work at that level looks like. The rubric fits on one page. She prints it for herself and decides to share it with students on day 7 after the wall chart so they can use it as a guide while they prepare. She also writes a small note. Mid-unit check, day 6. Ask each student to write one sentence that begins, "Across these 3 rivers, I'm starting to see Jim Cake." Read these. Adjust pacing if many students are still stuck. Formative assessment woven through, not bolted on. Step 7. Concept visibility. This is where Priya gets stricter with herself. She has watched herself slide back into topic mode in past units. She makes a checklist on the back of her sheet of paper. A concept wall set up before day 1. 3 words at the top in big letters. System, flow, interdependence. Underneath, room for sticky notes. Students add examples, connections, questions throughout the unit. The unit-long inquiry question on the board every day. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? It does not come down. It stays for 11 days. A daily 30-second concept check. At the end of each lesson, a sentence stem on the board. Today's lesson showed flow when Vajgayik. I noticed interdependence in Shadiyik. The system aspect of this case is Vaishtayik. Students write for 30 seconds. 3 students read out loud. Done. 60 seconds total, 11 days. 11 minutes of explicit concept practice, distributed. Concept language in feedback. When she grades the day 6 expert sheets, she does not just write good detail or needs more. She writes, your detail on the Nile flooding is strong. Now I want you to connect it to the concept of flow we have on the wall. When she grades the day 10 brief, she does not write well argued. She writes, your application of interdependence to the Indus Delta is what makes this brief travel. 5 things on the back of the sheet. Wall, question, daily check, sentence stems, language in feedback, 5 small habits that turn the unit from a series of lessons into a sustained inquiry. Priya looks at her sheet of paper. It is full now, both sides. The unit on one page, front side. Concepts. System, flow, interdependence. Generalization. Rivers connect distant ecosystems and communities into interdependent systems, driving patterns of settlement, trade, and conflict that shift over time as the river itself changes. Inquiry questions. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? Who owns a river that crosses 3 countries? Cases. Nile, Mekong, Mississippi. Skills. Map analysis. Satellite imagery. Primary sources. Comparative argument. Oral interview. 11-day sequence sketched out in a row of phrases. Engage on day 1. Focus on day 2. Investigate days 3 to 6. Organize day 7. Generalize day 8. Transfer days 9 and 10. Reflect day 11. Grasps task. Indus Delta brief. 1000-word advisor document for a local council. Backside. Rubric 3 by 3. Conceptual depth. Evidence transfer. Below at. Above proficient. Concept visibility checklist. Wall. Question. Daily check. Sentence stems. Language in feedback. That is the unit. Priya leans back in her chair. The kitchen window is open. The afternoon is fading. She has been working for 2.5 hours. She has just designed a grade 7 geography unit that will teach rivers more deeply than any version she has taught in 9 years. The textbook chapter on rivers had 28 pages of vocabulary and facts. Her new unit has 8 facts that matter. 3 rivers, 1 generalization, 1 transfer task. The vocabulary is still in there. The tributaries and confluences and meanders will all come up across the 11 days. But they will come up because students need them to make sense of the cases. They will come up as tools. They will not be the point. The point on the wall will be the question. How does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? And the answer after 11 days will be on the wall too. Students will have written it themselves. They will have written it because they earned it. The surprise in the last step. I want to tell you something about Priya that you may not have noticed. She has been teaching for 9 years. She has been teaching this unit for 9 years. She has not, in 9 years, taught the Mekong. She has not taught the dam in Ethiopia. That has changed the Nile. She has not taught the Mississippi as anything more than a name on a map. The new content arrived in her unit because the concept demanded it. The concept asked the question, how does a river shape the lives of those who live along it? The question demanded 3 rivers, not 1. The question demanded current rivers, not just historical ones. The question demanded human stories, not just physical geography. The question demanded engineering and politics and ecology and economics all at once. The unit that the concept built is a more demanding unit. It is also paradoxically a more teachable unit because every choice serves the destination. Every lesson is in service of the sentence on the wall. Every case is in service of the question. Concept first, cases second, facts third. That is the order. When you follow that order, every choice becomes easier. Priya looks at her sheet of paper. She looks at her stove. The water for the rice is boiling. She turns it down. She stands. She sets the sheet of paper next to her laptop. She will type it up tomorrow. She will share it with the grade 7 team. She will see what they think. Her daughter is back from football. She comes in and asks what is for dinner. Priya laughs. She has not thought about dinner. This is the small story of one teacher's Saturday afternoon. It is the story of one unit, one sheet of paper, 7 steps. It is the story of how a topic became a concept, and a chapter became a question, and a textbook became evidence. The original textbook chapter on rivers had 28 pages of facts. The new unit has 8 facts that matter and 1 generalization that will outlast the unit. Build one of your own. Pick a unit you're teaching in the next month. Take one Saturday afternoon. Pull out one sheet of paper. Run the 7 steps. By the time the water for the rice is boiling, you will have something that looks completely different from what you taught last year. This weekend, the recap and the handoff to part 4. Here is what we have done. We have walked one teacher through the 7 steps. We have watched her choose her concepts, draft her generalization, write her questions, pick her cases, design her phases, build her assessment, and plan her concept visibility. We have watched a topic called rivers become a unit about system, flow, and interdependence. We have seen the unit on one sheet of paper. We have walked through the framework and built one unit from scratch. But every discipline has its own personality. A maths lesson does not look like a literature lesson. A science discrepant event does not work the same way as a drama improvisation. A physical education class teaches strategy differently than a social studies class teaches power. In part 4, we walk through each major discipline and look at what concept-based inquiry actually looks like inside it. Maths first.